We're coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada, right here at the BetMGM Sportsbook, to borrow a line from one of my broadcasting icon heroes, Brent Musburger. We are here at the BetMGM Sportsbook at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, and it's our final day here, but we're excited to bring you even more information and more guests to, as we get closer to the game, figure out what to bet, who you like. We'll pick some final scores today. We've got a lot going on in this program and bringing you some interviews from earlier today, too. I just wanted to spend a few moments to recap the week that we had here in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. Had lots of people sit down with us, from Warren Sharp and Brady Cannon, a handicapper that's a Las Vegas resident for over 30 years. Our PFT crew and Joe Lisi, Donnie Rightside, Kevin Walsh. We had Rick Haro give you a sense of what the business impact will be for Las Vegas and what the NFL strategy looks like going forward. Games in Brazil, Germany, London, and Mexico certainly coming up next season. So a lot on the slate for the NFL, not just this Sunday, but beyond that. And the NFL draft just a couple of months away. We spend a lot of time. I host our draft coverage, so looking forward to that. Our buddy Dave Sharapan stopped by. He's a Las Vegas native as well. And the guy that was in risk rooms and taking bets for over 20 years. So obviously we've tried to give you as many perspectives as possible, and we'll give you even more today. Adam Kaplan was another guest of ours, an NFL insider. It gave us some perspective on this game. But today, we got some great interviews coming up. Stephon Gilmore and Brandin Cooks stopped by Radio Row earlier today. We'll have Adam Malamut on. He'll give us some of his perspective. He hosts Philadelphia Eagles pregame shows down at Ocean in Atlantic City, same place we have our Pro Football Today shows. Beyond that, we're going to bring you Taylor Mathis live from the set in the second hour. And Dr. Chow, the pro football doc, will be here to discuss any late-term injuries. We know Sky Moore has just come back from IR. Is Jarrett Kinnan going to ring the bell? Joe Tooney likely will not. Are there any other injuries out there that we need to discuss as we get close to kickoff, just 2 days away, a little more than 2 days away? So, been a long week in Vegas, but a good one and a productive one for me and for us at SportsGrid. So, and then we'll close out the show with me running around at the desk up at the Magic Wall, recapping all of the bets that we've given throughout the week. We've given out a lot, but it's time to recap our best bets at the end of the show. And I think everybody knows at this point which way I'm leaning with the Kansas City Chiefs, and we'll give you a final score as well. That's how we'll wrap up the week. So that's some perspective as to what happened on this show. But, you know, Radio Row is a crazy place these last few days. We've had lots and lots of people come through Wednesday, Thursday, and this morning, all giving their individual takes on how they think the Chiefs and or Niners can win. We had an opportunity to be on set with a whole host of people. So what we should do right now is reset all of the action for you. Obviously, we have the game sitting right now on the BetMGM app at +2. There are other places that might creep in and give you a little bit of a different number, but right now on the BetMGM app, we remain at 2, and that total still hasn't budged at all. I'm going to go to my app, folks, so you know live. You get it right here on your phone, that BetMGM app, something I use really on a daily basis, if I'm being honest. And right now, the live line is... yeah, remains 2. That 47.5, that total hasn't not moved at all the entire week. The Chiefs still at +110 on the money line. Those top touchdown scores remain Christian McCaffrey, -225. Isaiah Pacheco, -130. Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift's Bo, -115. Rashee Rice at +130, and it goes up from there. We obviously have big game MVP, the SB MVP, Patrick Mahomes, despite not being favored to win the game, at +135. Brock Purdy at +230. Christian McCaffrey +450. And then you have 10-1 or more from there. I've laid out a lot of different ways that this game can go. I concede that even though I have an opinion, I'm not in the business of exactly predicting every outcome, and the Niners are an excellent team. I'm leaning the way of the Chiefs because of the way they've played recently, and the coaching matchup, I think, is an advantage to the Chiefs. But this Niners team, the most talented probably in the league, everybody throwing their best pitch. Niners absolutely have an opportunity to win this game. So I don't think that's going to happen, which is why I'm going to lean towards the Kansas City Chiefs right now. It's not anything about denigrating Brock Purdy or Kyle Shanahan. I just think that they're a little outgunned in this case, but perhaps not. Kyle Shanahan did hold a 10-point lead against this Kansas City Chiefs team 4 years ago. Obviously different characters, slightly different coaching staffs, but this team was in the lead with 8 minutes to go and a 10-point lead with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Didn't close out the game. Chiefs put up 21 points from that point on. We had a 31-20 final. Some people think that score might get reversed. You know, there's stories of the Mentalist predicting a 31-20 final, a 31-21 final, but I'm obviously going a little bit of a different way. So, key characters in this game. We both know Mahomes versus Purdy, Shanahan versus Reed, Pacheco versus McCaffrey, Kelsey versus Kittle. The counterparts and the matchups are unbelievable. Do the Chiefs have somebody like Deebo Samuel on their roster? I wouldn't say so. Jerick McKinnon at full health is an interesting Swiss Army knife for that team, but we're not even sure if Jerick McKinnon's going to be active. They have until 4 p.m. tomorrow in order to do that. Beyond Jerick McKinnon, we have other opportunities for players to get the ball. Rashee Rice, an explosive rookie, 79 catches on the season. Will he have an explosive play? Rashee Rice with a long touchdown. Rashee Rice, first touchdown. What does that look like? You can get some long odds on that, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Some interesting parlay opportunities for you to take games, players, props, and more. What do I how is the game going to play out? What does the scoring look like? We have a first half that could be a little bit higher scoring. Both teams like to play with a lead. Both teams are going to want to jump out to that lead and try to hang on to it. I think the Niners will continually be more aggressive than the Chiefs were, but we're also talking about Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I don't think they shy away from aggressive play calling. It's just that this version of this Kansas City Chiefs team is aiming to get in the lead and hang on to it. They did that against Baltimore. Had to come from behind against Buffalo, but once they snatched that lead back, they hung on to it and played big-time D against the Bills in the fourth quarter to hang on to that lead. Again, the fourth quarter of that Bills game, they ran 23 offensive plays for 59 yards. Turnover on downs on the fake punt, a missed field goal, 0 points. 3 drives that netted them 0 points. So we'll see if the Chiefs can play a similar type of defense against the Niners. I think it'll be tough. It'll be their toughest test. Both teams' toughest test, if I'm being honest. The Ravens threw their hat in the ring when they blew out the Niners in December and went up against the Chiefs here in the AFC Championship game just a week ago, but weren't able to get it done. Do we see either of these teams exhibit any sort of panic with their play calling like the Ravens did in the AFC Championship game? I don't see it. I think they're both going to play their game, and I have a lot of confidence in both coaches. The Kyle Shanahan can never do it narrative is not something I buy into, even though I don't favor him in this game. They're favored by BetMGM Sportsbook, but not for me to make a pick. I'll keep breaking down more information right after this. Live from Las Vegas, it's SportsGrid Live.
Think about last year's game. It ends on the failed Hail Mary, and both teams run out onto the field. That's what you're looking for, is a
chaotic end of the game.
You can't get the game.
Oh, great point. Yeah.
2-point spread in the game. Think it could come down to the wire. Everyone says script, Taylor Swift, all this stuff. So I like 1,600, no Gatorade play.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
They have played terrible football, and yet they always win. Have you noticed? Everyone keeps talking about how bad the Niners suck as they win every week. They win every game, even games they should have. They're down 24-7, and they still won.
Now we have the first excuse when the Niners lose on Sunday night, they practiced on a bad field at UNLV. They didn't get the proper conditions.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
I saw a study that said 24% of Taylor Swift fans actually do follow the Chiefs now.
Sure.
And when you consider how many fans she has, it's quite a lot, 24%.
Oh, yeah. You seen Travis Kelce's Instagram, his social media?
Yeah.
Everything. It's huge.
Oh, no, listen. He's, like his agent said, he's going to be the next Rock. Like, they're setting him up to be, the next superstar.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid live from Las Vegas at the BetMGM Sportsbook. Excited to be here for a couple of more hours. Final day of the week here in Las Vegas. Again, guests will be coming up shortly. We'll run some interviews for you that were pre-taped at Radio Row and give you some players' perspective. I'll say this in general. From everybody we've spoken to this week, football people, players, coaches on the Chiefs, betting experts, handicappers, Niners. It's not a pure split. I would consider myself one of the betting personalities. I'm on the Chiefs, but it's pretty much leaning that way. People are feeling that they're getting a little bit of value out of the Niners. They think the value should be favored by more, at least in the betting community they feel that way. But the players and the coaches, they look across, they'd be looking across the field at Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and saying, how could we possibly bet against this guy? This is our biggest challenge as a team, trying to stop Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Those first 15 scripted plays, what is that going to look like? How are we going to get on top of that? How can we get them off the field? The Niners will be thinking that this week, particularly Steve Wilks, because the Niners, as good and talented as they are not good on third down, particularly since the Hufanga injury, and Warren Sharp will show us evidence of that a little bit later this hour. But Andy Reid, let's take a look at his coaching record. Right now, he is in his 25th season, 14 with Philly. This is his 11th season with Kansas City. His record, 258, 144, and 1. His 258 victories are fourth all-time behind only Don Shula, Bill Belichick, and, why am I blanking? Don Shula, Bill Belichick, and Andy Reid is fourth. I'm blanking on the second right now. I'll figure it out. It's an easy one. I know what it is, but I'm blanking. Oh, George Halas, sorry. So it's Shula, Halas, Belichick, Andy Reid. He finds himself in rare territory. This is his fifth Super Bowl, 2-2. Heading into this one, we'll see if Andy Reid can become a winning Super Bowl coach for the first time in his career at 3-2. So there we are with Andy Reid, 258, 144, and 1. On the flip side, Kyle Shanahan obviously experiencing the Super Bowl as well. So he finds himself in year 7 with the San Francisco 49ers. He is 64-51. Obviously slow going in his career. 6-10, 4-12, and then a 13-3 season. Took a step back during the COVID year, and then found himself using multiple quarterbacks along the way. Found himself in this position at 12-5 regular season, and now in the Super Bowl for the second time after the 2019 season and now after the 2023 season. So Kyle racking up an impressive coaching resume early in his career, and we look forward to seeing what's happening here. But I think the narrative for Kyle Shanahan will continue to be, can he get it done? I think he can. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to do it this weekend, but he can get it done. Can he overcome, the narrative is, can he overcome the mistakes of the past? A 28-3 lead when he was the offensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons. It disintegrated. And the criticism that you'll find there from people like me of Kyle Shanahan is, despite the fact that Dan Quinn was the head coach, with a 25-point lead and a leading NFL running back at Devontae Freeman, they chose to hand him the ball off 4 times. Were they too aggressive? Didn't work out. A lot of things had to go wrong in order for that to happen, but it didn't work out. Then, a couple of years later, as the head coach of the 49ers with Jimmy G and a 10-point lead with 8 minutes to go, Jimmy G is 18 of 21. What happens the rest of the way? 2 of 10 and an interception. Was he too aggressive? Should they have been running the ball more? I thought he was appropriately aggressive. He had some drops, he had some overthrows, and an interception to close it out. But that will be the story for people regarding Kyle Shanahan. What is this? When is he going to get over the hump? This team is so talented. If he's not able to get it done with this group, when is he going to get it done? I think it's certainly possible this weekend, even though I'm picking against him. So that's the coaching matchup. Not to mention Steve Spagnuolo, who's been really one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, perhaps the best defensive coordinator in the league for a period of time with the Chiefs now, and locking teams down in the second half. Second half under, I've told you all week that I'm on that. And the reason is that Kansas City allows only 6.8 points per game in the second half. The Niners and Steve Wilkes' defense allowing just 8.5 points per game. The Chiefs also not a high-scoring second-half team at just 7.6 a game. The Niners, however, the best second-half scoring team in the league, 14 points a game. So that's my risk there with the second half under, is the Niners just being such an explosive offense. Now, turn it over to the quarterbacks. Obviously, we don't need to review who their names are. Patrick Mahomes, where is he at this point in his career? In his, let me bring up the stats here. In his seventh full season in his career, he's 74-22, 219 touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes thus far in his career, to just 63 interceptions. He's won the MVP twice. He was the Offensive Player of the Year once. He's won multiple Super Bowls. He's been to his 4th Super Bowl. At 28 years of age, Patrick Mahomes is the youngest player to start at quarterback in 4 different Super Bowls. Tom Brady obviously ended up starting in many more than that, but Brady did not start in his 4th Super Bowl until he was 30 years old. Brady obviously dominant while in his 30s and pushed those numbers up. So Mahomes, not his greatest statistical season. 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Was he trying to do too much? Was he in a position where he knew the offense wasn't as explosive and needed to try to push the ball a little bit more? I think you'll find that Mahomes does try to do as much as he possibly can, but in this playoff run, these 3 playoff games, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Appropriately aggressive. I think that's the thing you can see about Mahomes. During the regular season, he might push the envelope a little bit more. As he gets to the postseason, he's been really taking care of the football. And again, against Buffalo, 37 minutes to 23 time of possession. They were outpossessed in that game. And yet he still, despite only throwing the ball 23 times against the Bills, put up 27 points to win the game. Against Baltimore, a little bit different. They took the air out of the ball. They did not want, people are very critical of the Ravens for not running the ball, and they should be. But they only had the ball for 23 minutes to the Chiefs' 37. Again, the Chiefs winning with a different brand of football from week to week. They do have a lot of arrows in their quiver, as it were. So, on the flip side, Brock Purdy. Some people calling him MV Purdy at various points during the season. His first full season at QB. We all know he took over in the middle of last year. 21 starts for Brock Purdy in his career, 44 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, 31-11 was the breakdown this year, completing nearly 70% of his passes for 4,300 yards. Came in 4th in the MVP voting. Lamar obviously taking that home last night. But He's at 9.6 yards per attempt this year, 9.9 average yards per attempt, and 13.9 yards per catch from his yards per completion, amongst his wide receivers. A bevy of talented weapons from McCaffrey to Debo to Kittle to Brandon Ayuk. It's a lot to stop. They could utilize Kyle Juszczyk in the pass game. Jawan Jennings. We all know there are a surprising amount of people that we know on this depth chart that could have an impact in this game, and we'll continue to monitor what that looks like during the first half of this game. We'll be live, by the way, on SportsGrid all day. I'll be 12 to 3 on Super Bowl Sunday, live from our New Jersey studio, bringing you all the pregame action. But during the game, you'll be live with our crew. Scott Farrell, Gabe Morency, Joe Rainieri live on the call. I'll be live with Joe Rainieri. I'll be live with Joe Rainieri on Sunday before the game, and he'll stick around and do that coverage during the game. So all of those live betting opportunities during the Super Bowl, we'll bring them to you, whether it's specific player props, catching the total at a different price. It'll finally move after the game gets kicked off. And will that spread move? You get an early Chiefs touchdown. Do you bet back against the Niners or the other way? We'd love to live bet here at SportsGrid, and we'll walk you through it on Super Bowl Sunday. We'll walk you through some interviews right after this. SportsGrid live from Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Sportsbook Hotel in the city.
Forget what your offense is, like the Baltimore Ravens did against the Kansas City Chiefs. Work off of Christian McCaffrey, but I do believe Brock Purdy is ready for the moment, at least play-calling wise.
Kyle Shanahan, who called the plays as the offensive coordinator, had a 25-point lead, and his running back, Devontae Freeman, with that 25-point lead, touched the ball 4 times in the second half.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back leads throwing 1 touchdown pass, right? You can't win MVP with 1 touchdown pass.
I hate the Chiefs, but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
They have played terrible football, and yet they always win. Have you noticed? Everyone keeps talking about how bad the Niners suck as they win every week. They win every game, even games they should have. They're down 24-7, and they still won.
Now we have the first excuse when the Niners lose on Sunday night. They practiced on a bad field at UNLV. They didn't get the proper conditions.
Farrell coast to coast. Only on SportsGrid.
And we are live from SportsGrid here at the BetMGM Sportsbook, the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. Excited to be here with you. Look, I even dressed up for the occasion. It's not a Niners tie or a Chiefs tie. It's both. We welcome all comers, fans of all shapes and sizes and ages. So we'll have you covered live from SportsGrid, not just today, but all through the weekend as you get set for the Super Bowl. And we've given you a lot of different perspectives, including one from two current Dallas Cowboys today. Stephon Gilmore and Brandin Cooks sat down with our very own Kevin Walsh at Radio Row earlier today.
SportsGrid live in Las Vegas with a pair of Dallas Cowboys. We've got Stephon Gilmore and Brandin Cooks. Appreciate you guys stopping by. I want to start with why you're out here, which is He Gets Us. And Brandon, I'll ask you, tell us what that is about and what message you guys are delivering.
Yeah, the message is obviously, He Gets Us. It's really talking about Jesus, how he loves everyone. Encouraging you to love your neighbor, love, spreading love, kindness, generosity. And what is your neighbor? It's not people that look like you, right, or talk like you. It's people that don't look like you, that may not talk like you, different walks of life, but still having the ability to love them and love each other no matter what's going on.
And then, Stephon, you guys are out here doing something very specific, great stuff during this weekend in Vegas?
Yeah, we just doing we did something today for He Gets Us, just spreading the love. Yeah. Like he said, let's building our foundation on faith and just showing love to one another. And just today, right now, we're doing a lot of interviews, just, talking ball, so it's been fun.
I have noticed, obviously just watching, but it does seem very nice that at the end of the game sometimes whoever kind of shares the same faith will come together no matter the team. And is that something that I guess keeps guys kind of bonded throughout the league, Brandon?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's also give you the ability to, share your faith and give God glory no matter the circumstances. Obviously, during the game, win, lose, or draw, you like to be there in the middle because it kind of shows you the people that are kind of walking that same walk of life with you for sure.
Yeah. Stephon, I want to ask you about playing for Dan Quinn. He makes the move to Washington. For you, what was it like playing under Quinn in Dallas?
He was a great coach. He found a way to gel with the players and be hard on them. Yeah. And I wasn't surprised how, the last 3 or 4 years Dallas defense been playing at an elite level. But he had a great opportunity to go to Washington and be a head coach again. And I'm happy for him. So it was a great year, just to be coached up under him.
For you, heading into free agency, is that something that factors in? Mike Zimmer's now going to be the DC in Dallas, or are we a little far out from figuring that all out?
That's what I heard. I don't know if that's official yet, but that's what I heard. But Zim is a great coach, old school guy. All his defenses played great, when he coached them. So that wouldn't be a bad thing to have him as a coach.
Yeah. Brandon, getting to play with Dak. It's an interesting look. Dak's getting judged on a different standard. He was in the MVP race all season long, but the back end of it didn't end in the result that you guys wanted. A couple of pick sixes in the first half against Green Bay. But what was it like for you playing alongside Dak this season?
It was great. I love Dak. Like I told him, he became like a brother, and only in a short time. I got a lot of respect for the way that he handled himself. Obviously, he gets judged because we got that star on our helmet. But at the end of the day, the way that he's playing is at the highest level. He can't do it by himself. You know what I mean? He needs his guys around him to step up, whether that be O-line, receivers, running backs. It takes everyone to kind of help him, especially in the playoffs. At the end of the day, you need everybody on board doing their thing.
I'm curious if I can just bring up the game against Green Bay where a team is on a heater like they were, because Jordan Love in that game was just kind of clicking on all cylinders. Is there a moment where you're like, I don't know how we're going to be able to stop this guy today? Because that's the thing about football. In a 7-game series like basketball, or hockey, the better team typically can win out. And you guys had an incredible season, but in that one game, they came out so on fire, Stephon, and put you guys behind the 8 ball early.
I just think at the end of the day, they played more physical than we did. It was able to establish the run early. And, once you do that, the defense got to play perfect. So we couldn't stop the run. It set up the play-action pass and things like that. So, that's what it really comes down. I think the most physical team is going to win the game, and they was that day.
Yeah. You both have Super Bowl experience. I'll ask you, Brandon, going into the game on Sunday. Is there something about that matchup between the Chiefs and the Niners that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, obviously, you talk about the rematch. This time around, like Kansas City defense, I want to say was top 5 in the league this year. So they playing at a high level, right? And the weapons that the 49ers have. But one thing that you can just never underestimate is Patrick Mahomes. Like, did I think Baltimore was going to win that? I did. But the way Mahomes is Mahomes, and when you got that it factor, I feel like you can never go against that. So I'm looking forward to the matchup because Kyle Shanahan, great coach, Mahomes, and that defense going against those weapons in San Francisco. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So I'll ask you just, Stephon, about the matchup between Kelsey and then Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, right? That's one that a lot of people are kind of keying on. How do Fred and Greenlaw, and I guess the Niners defense
Tell them what
as
you
a
would do,
whole,
Steph.
try and lock them in?
Tell them what you'll do.
What I do?
Yeah, dude, please.
Just put me on them. It'll be
Yes,
happening.
sir. Yes, sir.
It's going to be a great matchup. They got an elite defense. Travis Kelce's an elite tight end, but I think it ain't going to be one guy to stop him because they play a certain scheme. They play mostly cover 3 zone.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a whole team. They got to get to the quarterback. And it's not going to be one person to stop Travis Kelce. It's going to have to be the whole defense.
But is there something to that? Because I remember when Gronk was – he had a great career, obviously, but the Jags were throwing Jalen Ramsey on him, and that was working. So is that – see, this is why I like –
Wait, when that happened? The AFC Championship?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I know how it worked.
I don't remember that one.
But it worked out great for you guys. I understand that, but look, Ramsey's a great player. But
I'm just saying they don't really match up scheme-wise. They don't really put a corner on a tight end. That's not what they do. They play cover 3. They play man. Like, nobody. It's not going to be one person that stopped them. They haven't done it all year unless something changed.
When you get to the Super Bowl, though, can you make a change like that, or you're breaking tendency too much?
You can, but it's been working all year.
Got scars from that.
Yeah.
What are you referring to?
I mean,
when we played the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All year they was running man on film. We get to the Super Bowl, they switched it all up.
Yeah.
Played that 6-1 defense and ran zone, but never really showed that. Didn't show it at all during the season.
Yeah.
So you can to answer your question, depends who your coach is. You can switch it up if you got the confidence.
Yeah. But that's what's super interesting though about these two coaches for me, because Andy now has all the Super Bowls to back it up. I think everybody, you alluded to it, Kyle Shanahan's an incredible play caller, but until you win a Super Bowl, and even sometimes winning one isn't enough. You guys know that playing for Mike McCarthy. Until Kyle Shanahan wins a Super Bowl, people are going to always doubt just how great he is, right?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You got to win the big one. But he's a great coach regardless. But I think they got the team that should do it. They have talent everywhere on their team. So Brock Purdy's playing well.
Yeah.
So they got opportunity, but it's just you got one of the greatest players to ever play the game in Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
You can't bet against. So it's going to be a good game.
Well, we'll find out. Again, if he gets us, that's Brandin Cooks and Stephon Gilmore. The most I've learned all week, I think, going into this game. I appreciate it.
I love it, man.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Great stuff there from Radio Row, Brandin Cooks and Stephon Gilmore with Kevin Walsh promoting He Gets Us. Obviously, you've seen that advertised in a variety of different NFL contests. But the perspective that I appreciate there from them is that sort of a shrug of the shoulders. If you're good enough, you can switch up your game plan when it comes to the playoffs or when it comes to the Super Bowl. We've seen Kansas City win ball games this postseason in a variety of different manners. Quick strike offense and also taking the air out of the ball, keeping Baltimore off the field. So does Kyle Shanahan have that in them? And Steve Wilks, are they going to switch up the game plan? We're going to have Adam Malamut on in the next segment to talk a little bit about how the Eagles were able to play against both of those teams. They obviously faced the Chiefs and the Niners late in the season. They had varying success against those two teams. So I think somebody that covers the Eagles as closely as Adam does, it'll give us some really interesting thoughts on how the Chiefs or Niners could succeed or fail in this game. So great stuff there. We'll continue to bring you stuff from Radio Row. And obviously live here on set with Adam, and then in the following hour we'll have Taylor Mathis and Dr. Chow, and then I'll close it out with all my best bets. So Brandin Cooks and Stephon Gilmore, we're talking about guys that are defensive player of the year quality. Brandin Cooks has been on a number of different teams, but extensive experience, multiple 1,000-yard seasons. So they know, well, this is what I would do in this scenario. They obviously, I appreciate their competitive arrogance and saying, well, just put me on them. I'll lock them up. Or Brandin Cooks saying, nobody can really cover me. I think that's the attitude you're going to have with anytime you go out there. You have to think that you're the best player on the field, and certainly nobody can cover you or nobody can get past you and make any catches on you. So, they're going to be going through an interesting transition here. Obviously, Mike McCarthy remains, but Dan Quinn leaves. Dan Quinn was a big part of their success defensively, but they also, you have to appreciate the fact that it said, the Packers are just the better team that day. There's no complaining. They know that they got out-physicaled in that game. Dan Quinn now goes to Washington. Mike Zimmer, a former Cowboys coach, comes home to coach in Dallas. Old school, like they said. Will Mike Zimmer, in this ever-evolving state of the NFL, have success as they go into the 2024 regular season, and beyond? When I come back, we'll still be here live from this set. Adam Malamut will join us. He's a co-host of Eagles Pregame with Jacob Sports. We'll be right back after this.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide.
Of course.
You're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They reel off the Chiefs, do 21 straight points. They win the game 31-20.
I've been selling this, because of the 23 billion is going to be bet on this game in the States this Sunday. That's insane. And this place, Vegas, they're going to make billions of dollars if the Chiefs don't win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the two biggest games of the two Super Bowls, one as a coordinator, one as a head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid live from Las Vegas. I'm joined by a guest, Adam Malamut. He's the co-host of Eagles pregame for Jacob Sports, has some great perspective on this weekend's matchup because the Eagles had a chance to play both of these teams late in the season, right, Adam?
Mike, that had a chance stuff hurts, man. That had a chance stuff hurts. This is maybe my most difficult Las Vegas trip. You know, I'm out here to see these two teams play. They earn the right to be here. My Philadelphia Eagles have not earned that right.
Right. So let's talk about the Eagles in general and their season and gain some perspective there, and then talk a little bit about how the Chiefs and 49ers matchup might be. So it was obviously a really unique season, right? They were coming off a Super Bowl loss, so very often a Super Bowl hangover for both teams. But in particular, the team that loses the Super Bowl has a very tough time getting back there. But we saw the Eagles race out to a 9-1 lead, beating the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City on Monday night. But there seemed to be little seeds of evidence that maybe this wasn't the same version of the Eagles. Jalen Hurts a little bit banged up. They started winning these close games against the Commanders, the Dallas Cowboys, and then that Chiefs game, and then it started to unravel from there. Why do you think that happened?
You know, Mike, let me start off by saying, and the Jets fans aren't going to be happy about this, I knew we had a problem when we lost to the Jets. Yeah. When you lose, there are certain teams that you're supposed to lose to, or you should be more competitive with. There's certain teams that you should run away with. The Jets team on paper is a young, good team, but the Eagles matched up so much better. And when we saw that game break down,
and the Jets beat them. Like that's really, I think, what you're aiming
at, they beat,
right?
They beat the pulp out of them. Yeah. And it wasn't, I mean, it was a decisive win. And, you know, the problem that we recognized was at that point, we knew that there was something going on. We didn't know where the failure was. We didn't know whether it was something that was a systemic failure or just some miscues. But then we saw them come in and they beat the Chiefs. Yeah. And it was interesting. They beat the Chiefs without Jalen Hurts throwing a touchdown, but he scored 2 rushing touchdowns. Yep. DeAndre Swift scored a rushing touchdown. So all 21 of the Eagles' points were on the ground, not through the air. You know, Jalen Hurts in that game only threw for 150 yards. Jalen, I happen to love Jalen. I'm a huge Jalen Hurts fan. Same. But he's got an arm, and I think that some of the discord may have come from folks not getting the ball that wanted the ball, and it's good to have a competitive team where everybody wants the ball. But in that game, you know, they played a really well-planned game plan against who I think is probably the best team in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just a couple of weeks later, they had this matchup against the Niners at home, and that's when we knew, okay, if we thought there wasn't a problem at this point, now we know there's a problem because the Niners just ran them over, 42-19 victory.
I will never forget back in the Charlie Garner days, the Eagles running up the score 40 points on the Niners. And, when...
Payback.
Remember that? Remember that? That was a long time ago.
Payback from the Charlie Garner days?
The Charlie Garner days, yeah. But the Eagles came out flat in that game, and it was amazing to me because they had every incentive to come out in that game and come out strong, and they just didn't. I mean, from the get-go, they didn't come out strong. You know, Jalen Hurts threw the ball 45 times. Right. It's a huge difference from what they did with the Chiefs game where they were successful. Right. He had to because they were getting killed. You know, in the first quarter, the Eagles were up 6-0. Then all of a sudden, the 49ers just run the table. 14 points in the second quarter, 14 points in the third quarter, 14 points in the fourth quarter. They never took their foot off the gas.
That's right.
And here you have the Eagles that are trying to figure out how to get back in the game. They're trying to figure out exactly what it is that they need to game plan and where they're miscuing, and they just couldn't get it together. So Jalen Hurts rushed for 7 times, 7 rushes in that game. No clock management. You've got the quarterback leading the team in rushing attempts and rushing yards with 20 yards.
Right. So, again, we're with Adam Malamut. He's the co-host of Eagles pregame for Jacob Sports. Yeah, giving us, obviously, a lot of really good numbers here on the Eagles. And Eagles, a team that played both of these teams later in the season. So, final question about the Eagles, and then we'll really focus on Niners and Chiefs. We have Now, coaching changes, right?
Sure.
We have a potential retirement from Jason Kelsey. It's he's not officially official.
I'm not ready to give up on him yet.
Yeah, so it's not officially official, but I thought the Disney World trip was sort of like, if you had any hope that he might come back, the Disney World trip felt like the final act of an active NFL player. But we also have Johnson being pushed out as the coordinator, and they've made some changes here.
Sure.
What do you suspect will happen with these coordinator changes?
Look, I think what's going to happen is I think that you're going to have the team get re-energized. You're going to have new leadership there. You're going to have a different perspective, and sometimes you just need to hear it differently. Sometimes it's the same message, but from a different voice. And I think that that's what you're going to get initially. The team has to be bought in on their leadership. And one of the things that we talked about on our show, and as you know, I co-hosted with Mark Farzetta and Seth Joyner.
Yeah.
And one of the steady themes has been the leaders have to lead. And I think that if they establish leadership early on and they win over the team and they win over the team's belief, I think that you'll get the productivity that we know they can do. I think 10-1 was an anomaly. This league, there's no team that's really wired to go 10-1. That's a huge jump out of the
without getting some huge breaks along.
Right. And so I mean, we got some breaks and we won some games. I mean, I think that we might be the only team that had a winning record or that kind of winning record with that narrow of a point differential.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about the new coaches coming in, it really falls down on what are these coaches going to do in the locker room? How are they going to lead? And how are they going to get their leaders to lead on the field?
Yeah, so the game that really did it for me was the Dallas game, the game that they beat Dallas. I was like, something is desperately wrong here. I thought the Cowboys were getting too much credit for losing that game closely, but that was the game where I was like, something's wrong. Then they beat the Chiefs, and I was like, all right, maybe they still have it together, do the Eagles, but again, we'll see what happens. Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore. I don't know if that's the best mix, but they're doing it. Sirianni's going to have to take control. So let's take a look at these two teams. You obviously have a team that the Eagles beat and the Eagles lost to. But do you think this Kansas City Chiefs game, as you watch it from a little bit from afar, do you think this Kansas City Chiefs team is different than the one that the Eagles played a couple of months ago?
I do. I think that they're very different. I think they've hit stride. And the one thing that you can't do with players of the caliber that the Chiefs have is let them hit stride. Once they hit stride, it's this snowball effect of success. And I would not want to be the 49ers young quarterback. I love Brock Purdy. I think that he's got a huge future. But, coming in to play a guy with Mahomes' credentials, and I was listening to Brandin Cooks before my segment, and heard him talking about, what he thinks of Mahomes, and I don't disagree. I think Mahomes is a phenomenal quarterback, and I'm not ready to give him one of the best of all time yet. I think he's got some years ahead of him.
Sure.
But he's certainly on a great trajectory. But this team also has a very, very underrated defense. People want to talk about the defensive players in the 49ers. They don't talk enough about the defensive players in the Kansas City Chiefs. So when you have a guy like George Kittle in the Niners, the Chiefs have responses to that. They have people that can get out and cover a guy like that. Christian McCaffrey is going to be the determining factor as to how the Niners go today.
Sure, I agree. Yeah, on
the
Sunday,
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl 58. So what I think you're right. I'd concur in saying that you have Chris Jones and George Karlaftis up front. Karlaftis is really showing that he's a great young player, first-round draft pick for them. You have Nick Bolton in the middle, who's racked up, not last week against the Ravens, because the Ravens didn't run the ball all that much, but the previous 3 games, double-digit tackles. Nick Bolton obviously had one of the biggest plays in the Super Bowl last year, where Jalen Hurts dropped the ball and Nick Bolton picked it up and ran it back for a scoop and score. That was a play early on in that game that had a huge impact long term, right? Hurts played a nearly perfect game, but that one drop led to a touchdown that kept the Chiefs close in that first half. So you have that, and then on the outside, look, I think 2 guys that are a huge impact in this game is Greenlaw and Warner, obviously in the San Francisco side, but I've been talking about it all week. Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed and their ability to potentially limit Kittle, but more importantly Ayuk, and possibly limit the explosive plays. I think is really something that's important when we head into this weekend.
Yeah, so Mike, it's interesting. If you look at Super Bowl MVPs over the past 26 seasons, or 26 Super Bowls, 4 times you had a defensive player.
That's right.
4 times. You never had a tight end.
Correct.
But 4 times you had a defensive player. Trent McDuffie is plus 50,000.
I love it.
Plus 50,000. And that's the guy that I'm looking at. He had huge shoes to fill with the Honey Badger leaving, right? And he plays that same type of game. I'm not willing to give him the credentials yet, but he plays that same type of game.
Sure.
He's an exciting guy. He's a game changer. He's a guy who can come out and at any given moment, he can shut somebody down. He can lay the wood and, hit hard.
Yeah.
And he can be somebody who can really affect change. But look, the Niners have a great linebacker core. Warner's awesome. Bosa's awesome. But, they're going up against a guy who I think is going to go down as the best tight end in the history of the game.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that and your Niners perspective. You've given us some already, but you have Warner and Greenlaw in the middle, Bosa, and obviously some big-name defensive linemen up front. But as you can see, we're live show here. We got a lot of characters out here. I don't mind it. It's part of why we're here, right? People rooting for the Niners and the Chiefs. So Greenlaw and Warner in the middle. What I think is going to be the key for Kansas City is Isaiah Pacheco and trying to get him the ball often, early and often. I like his over on rushing attempts. What do you think is the best way to attack this Niners defense?
So I agree with you with the over because McKinnon's not in. So they're already down a man. And Edwards-Helaire, a lot of people like him. I just don't think that he's the player that people think he is.
Game plan at all.
I don't either. And I saw some prop bets.
Touched the ball 28 times last week.
Right. And the guy's a machine. And, everybody talks about him running angry. I don't know if our viewers really understand what level of anger he runs with. Every step he takes with intention. So I agree. Look, I think that the big advantage is Mahomes isn't going to have to throw the ball. He will throw the ball, but they have the ability to use Pacheco to get out there and to help balance the game plan, balance the time, balance the play clock. I think that the Chiefs being an underdog is kind of crazy on this thing.
He's 10-1-1 against the number is Mahomes against the spread when he's an underdog with 9 outright wins, and in the playoffs as an underdog in his career, 3-0 straight up. So we got just about a minute and a half to go. I want to give you some time. It's a +2 is the spread here. The total is 47.5. Over, under first, and then which team do you like?
Yeah, so I love that you're going +2 because I'm with the Chiefs also, but I take the money line.
Yeah, me too.
So I think that, 2 points is nothing. It's interesting. If you look at the quarters.
+110 on the money line right now, by the way, on the BetMGM app.
What's that?
Plus 110 on the money line on the BetMGM app.
So if you look at the quarters, you add up all the quarters right now, they add up to 44. I think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. The over-under, last time I checked, was 47.5.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I like the under.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think that San Fran's going to come out. They're going to play hard. It's going to be McCaffrey. McCaffrey's going to eat up a lot of clock. I listen, all day long, I'm Chiefs money line, and I'm parlaying it with the under.
Okay, so there you go. We are simpatico here. Chiefs and the under. I'm aligned with Adam there. Great stuff, as always, from Adam Malamut. You find him down in Atlantic City doing the pregame for the Eagles. He's a co-host for Jacob Sports for those Eagles pregame. Adam, thank you for being here with us live at the BetMGM Sportsbook. Right back to close out the hour after this.
Would it be a disappointment if the Chargers aren't in the playoffs this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, the goal is to win a division because the best team in the league is in your division. So the mentality of it, forget the playoffs, forget the Super Bowl.
Division.
Let's win a division because we get a division.
It's like college, right? Win the conference.
That's it.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
To the big news here, a big push for Georgia to get things going as far as legalized sports betting. And Pat, I don't want to get people too excited. It's not like this is happening this year.
The Senate version and the House version, and then they're going to have to get a couple of people from each chamber together and kind of wrestle out the details of what exactly sports betting in Georgia might look like.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Bend but don't break, you've got to give Spags credit for that.
Sure, and that's I mean, for all the criticism that's been levied at KC this season, and there's been a lot, their defense has been a dominant unit. It's been a playoff winning unit. And, you know, you ask me what's the undervalued commodity here, and it's KC's defense.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Hey, we're back. We're here at the Magic Wall right here. It's the Sharp Report. Warren Sharp giving us some great information on how the Niners defense started to flail a little bit at the end of the year. What was the reason for that? An injury to Talanoa Hufanga went on IR during Week 11. Started 10 games, started 27 games in a row for the Niners, and yet the defense started to get a little bit leakier when he went out. Here's Warren to tell us why.
A lot of people have been watching the San Francisco 49ers defense in the playoffs and been a little bit surprised at the lack of efficiency out of this defense. The reality is the lack of efficiency out of the defense started much earlier, and it started with the loss of their starting safety, Hufanga, who is an absolute stud. Weeks 1 through 10, when Hufanga was healthy, this was a top 15 unit in efficiency, in EPA, top 10 in success rate. However, since his loss, specifically on third down passes, the San Francisco 49ers defense ranks number 31 in EPA per attempt allowed and number 31 in success rate allowed on third down passing attempts. This team has really fallen on hard times, and it also carries forward into the run game as well. They had been a top 10 run defense in weeks 1 to 10 when Hufanga was active. They have dropped down to number 26 in EPA per attempt and number 30 in success rate with Hufanga being absent down the stretch of the season. This isn't something that's just started in the playoffs. It happened well before then. It's something the Kansas City Chiefs can capitalize on.
All right, so that third-year player out of Southern Cal, safety Talanoa Hufanga, really having a big impact once he went out during their Week 10 game. So we'll see if the Niners can do anything to perhaps stop some of the negative trend that we've seen from them, particularly on third down. As good and talented as the Niners are on defense, that Steve Wilks unit has not done a great job of getting off the field on third down. If the Chiefs are getting into third and short, third and medium, are they able to convert? Are they keeping those talented linebackers on the field for far too long? It's certainly something I think they'll try to do, and great perspective there from Warren Sharp. When we come back, we'll start hour number 2. Taylor Mathis joining us, Dr. Chow, and more right after this on The Grid.